Congratulations, you've arrived at the finish line. This is the final episode of the series Salvation and Discipleship. And I just got to say, I am really excited that you've watched through these, provided that you've watched the ones up until now. I just think that is so cool that you found it valuable enough to stick with us. And, for me, this series has been really valuable because much of what's in this series is what changed the way that I look at the Bible, salvation, and discipleship, and all that. And so it's a special thing just right at the center of my heart, and I'm really excited that you've gone through this with us. So here's what I want to say in this final episode. Would you use a saw to drive a nail? Or would you use a hammer to pull out a screw? Or would you use a screwdriver to change a light bulb? Obviously not. The reason why I say that is I think it's really important that we understand that each of the books of the Bible are like tools in a toolkit. They each have a particular purpose. So for instance, if I want to get a sense of the immensity of God, I would probably open up the book of Job, maybe some of the Psalms that David wrote. If I want to get a sense of how to woo a woman, maybe I'm thinking about marrying someone, I might open up the Song of Solomon. If I want to understand the early history of the earth or something like that, I would open up Genesis. So we already know instinctively by reading the Bible that each book has a particular purpose. So if specific questions come up, we're totally comfortable pointing people towards specific books in the Bible. Now, what I've noticed over my years in ministry is that people pull verses from all over the Bible to talk about salvation. And it raises the question, what book should we be using to talk about salvation? Is there a single tool? Is there a single book that's designed for that? Well, you probably have noticed the answer through this series. As we've gone through, most of the verses that we've used to talk about salvation have come from one single book. Have you noticed what it is? It's the Gospel of John. The Gospel of John is specifically written to tell people how to have everlasting life. And I know we've mentioned it in previous episodes, but I want to just reiterate it here because I think it is probably the most important thing for people who are in ministry and considering how they're going to do evangelism. Let's look at John 20, 30, and 31 once more to get a sense of what John was saying about his own writing. He says, "And truly Jesus did many other signs in the presence of his disciples, which are not written in this book, but these are written that you may believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, and that believing you may have life in his name." So this is the purpose statement of the Gospel of John. He tells us that his whole purpose for writing and deciding which stories to include, the purpose is to teach people how to have salvation. That is the purpose statement for John, and it's one of the reasons why I love the Gospel of John, because he's so precise in telling us why he even wrote it. And so, since that's his purpose statement, the Gospel of John should be the place where we go when we're sharing the gospel with other people, because that was what John was focused on. So the question arises, is there any other book in the Bible that has that purpose statement of showing people how to have everlasting life? Actually, there's not. There's no other tool in the Bible that's specifically written to teach people how to have everlasting life. So you may wonder, well, is there a category for all the other books in the Bible? Well, actually, 2 Timothy 3, 16 and 17 tell us what all Scripture is good for. Let's take a look at that real quick. Paul says it this way, "All Scripture is given by inspiration of God and is profitable for doctrine, for reproof, for correction, for instruction in righteousness, that the man of God may be complete, thoroughly equipped for every good work." Now, I want to just bring your attention to that last line. It tells us that all Scripture, the entire Bible, is designed so that people can be prepared and equipped for every good work. Now, you've seen throughout this series that good works are always connected to discipleship. So what Paul is saying here is that all of Scripture is designed to help people be better disciples. All but one of the books of the Bible are written to people who have already believed, to people who already believe something about God and about the Messiah. So, what we find out is that all Scripture is about discipleship, even including John. So what that means is the purpose statement of all Scripture does apply to the Gospel of John, but check this out. The purpose statement of the Gospel of John does not apply to all Scripture. I'm going to say that again. The purpose statement of all Scripture, that it's good for helping people be equipped for good works, that applies to every book, including the Gospel of John. But the Gospel of John's purpose statement does not apply to all the other books. What does that mean? That means that once someone believes, they should be reading the Bible as a whole. But until someone has become a believer, the Gospel of John is the place that they need to spend their time, because it is specifically written for people who have not yet believed, but are interested and want to believe. So, when you consider doing evangelism, if you go to some other place like Deuteronomy or Exodus or Numbers to tell people about salvation, you might be doing it wrong. You probably should use the tool that John gave us, which is his gospel, in order to explain the gospel. Even Matthew, Mark, and Luke don't have the purpose statement of telling us how to have everlasting life. In fact, if you look at the content of Matthew, Mark, and Luke, they are focused on discipleship, telling believers how to live. They're not primarily focused on that. And so a lot of people have become confused by reading those, thinking that they're all about salvation, when they're not. The Gospel of John is focused on salvation. The other books in the Bible are focused on discipleship. So what that means for us is our evangelism should be focused on the Gospel of John. It's a standalone work that is amazing at bringing people to faith. I want to just thank you from the bottom of my heart for watching all of these videos. It's been an amazing experience for me to make them, and I hope it's been valuable to you. I'd encourage you to pick up a copy of my book, Salvation and Discipleship, if you haven't yet, just to have it so that you can be reminded of the things that you learned in this study. Also, I'd encourage you to get subscribed to our website, simplybelief.com. We'll have other Bible studies that show up there from time to time, and I hope that this has been a special experience for you. And finally, I want to hear from you. If you've been watching through these videos, please send me a message. I'd love to hear about your experience going through these videos and reading the content. Until next time, I thank you for watching, and we'll see you later.